Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this tutorial, I will show you the full process of creating a viral style motion graphic edit. But more importantly, I will walk you through how I came up with the idea, from finding references on Pinterest to using ChatGPT and Photoshop to edit and prepare the visuals, and finally animating everything step by step in After Effects. This is not just about creating something that looks cool, it's about learning how to think creatively and turn a simple idea into a complete animation. Project files are linked below so you can follow along. With that being said, let's get started. To start, let's head over to Pinterest and look for some inspiration for our animation. I found this image that looks very nice and I think it's perfect as a reference. I will download it and upload it to ChatGPT, asking it to separate the float and the cloud into two different images with transparent backgrounds. Once the images are ready, download them to your computer and open After Effects. Create a new composition with a width of 1080 and a height of 90/20. Now we're gonna start building the ocean. We will create it using multiple layered shapes, one on top of the other. Let's start by creating the ocean texture. First create a new white solid, apply the fractal noise effect, change the fractal type to dynamic, and increase the contrast to 140. Under transform, set the scale to 400. Now add the expression to the evolution by holding Alt and clicking the stopwatch next to it. Write time multiplied by 80. This creates smooth looping movement. Next, apply the turbulent displace effect, set amount to 15 and size to 250. Apply the tint effect, set map black to a light cyan and map white to a slight brighter cyan. Reduce the amount to 65%. Now add the gradient ramp effect. Use the eyedropper tool to sample the bright cyan from the tint to the start color and the regular cyan for the end color. Set blend with original to 60%. Change ramp shape to radial ramp. Place the start point in the center and the end point to one of the edges. Finally, apply Gaussian blur with blur set to 2 and add the noise effect with the amount of noise set to 2%. Duplicate the solid layer, apply the CC radial fast blur effect and set the zoom to darkest. Then add the glow effect, set the glow intensity to 0.3, glow threshold to 20% and reduce the layer opacity to 20%. Now let's create the sun reflection lines on the water. Create a new solid. Apply the fractal noise effect, set the fractal type to strings, the noise type to linear, and increase the contrast to 120. Under transform, set the scale to 30, add the fast box blur effect and increase the blur radius to 30. Open the expression of the evolution and write time multiplied by 80. Duplicate the fast box blur effect, then apply the CC vector blur effect, set the amount to 165 and duplicate the effect as well. Add the levels effect. Set input black to 0.5 and input white to 1.45. Change the layers blending mode to add. You can now see the sun reflection lines appearing on the water. Now let's move on to create the top layer of the water. Create a new solid and set its color to dark cyan. Apply the fractal noise effect and change the fractal type to turbulent smooth. Increase the contrast to 155 and under the transform, set the scale to 200. Add the expression to evolution and write time multiplied by 80. Lower the fractal noise opacity to 60%. Apply the fast box blur effect and set the blur radius to 30. Now apply the 4-color gradient effect. Go to the base layer, copy the main cyan color and paste it into color 1. Copy the lighter cyan and paste it into color 2. For color 3, sample the same cyan and make it slightly lighter. Do the same for color 4, but make it whiter. Set the layers blending mode to overlay and reduce the layers opacity to 50%. Select all the ocean layers and pre-compose them. Make it 3D layer, set the X rotation to 90 degrees to make it flat. In the position, move the layer down until it reaches the bottom part of the frame. Finally, scale up the pre-compose to 250%. Now let's create the background for the sky. Create a new solid and make it a 3D layer. With the position, move the background until it sits behind the water. Increase the scale until it covers the entire screen and a bit more. Apply the 4-color gradient effect. Set color 1 and color 2 to the same cyan shade. Set color 3 to a lighter cyan and use the same color for color 4. Move point 3 and point 4 up so they align with the top of the edge of the water layer. Raise point 1 and point 2 slightly higher. Create keyframes for all 4 points. Move 2 seconds forward in the timeline and slightly adjust the position of the points. Move forward another 2 seconds and move the points in different directions again. Then move 2 more seconds forward and return the point to the original positions. Increase the blend value to 200 to create a smoother background. Import the clouds we created with ChatGPT and make them 3D layers. In the position, move them back so they're just in front of the background. Scale them up until they slightly go behind the frame edges and position them above the water lines. Create a mask on the bottom part of the cloud layer. Click on invert. Increase the mask further until the bottom edge becomes softly blurred. Add a CC radial fast blur effect and reduce the amount to 10 to simulate motion. Add the glow effect. Change glow color to A and B colors. Set color B to white. Reset the threshold to 0. Lower the glow intensity to 0.3. Then increase the radius slightly. Since it looked too bright, reduce the intensity further to 0.1. Move the cloud left to the edge and create a keyframe. Move 6 seconds forward and move the cloud right to the opposite edge. Create a mask around the left cloud. Change its mask mode to intersect. Duplicate the layer, delete the mask, create a new mask around the middle cloud and set mask mode to intersect again. Duplicate once more, delete the mask, create a mask around the right cloud and set it to intersect. This way we have separate layers for each cloud. Now we can select the 2 position keyframes of the middle cloud and shift them forward slightly to create a sense of depth. For the leftmost cloud, use the puppet tool to add position pins at the key points. Go to its second keyframes and move each pin slightly to the right to add subtitle motion, making the cloud feel more realistic. Do the same for the middle cloud, add pins at the key points. Move to the second keyframe and shift each pin slightly right. We don't need to do this to the third cloud, since it doesn't stay on the screen long enough. We will use the Tripo Studio website to create a 3D float. We don't have any partnership or special agreement with them, I'm just using this website. I'm pretty sure that ChatGPT or other similar tools could do the same job. Anyway, click on Generate 3D Models, upload the image of the inflatable float that ChatGPT created for us, click Generate and wait a few seconds. Now we have the float converted into a 3D model. Export it and make sure the format is GLB. In After Effects, add a swim ring image to the composition, then click Make Comp Size to fit it. Position the swim ring near the bottom so it's float on the water. Go back to Pinterest and search for a person sitting on a swim ring is drowned. Found a good image, take a screenshot for it, upload the image to ChatGPT, and ask to separate the person from the swing ring and the water. The result isn't perfect, but it's usable. Download the separate image and drag it into the comp. Make the layer 3D, duplicate the person layer, create a mask around the legs on the first layer. Copy the same mask to the second layer and click invert. This way one layer will show the lower part of the person and the other will show the upper part. Lower the person into the float until the blue area on the stomach is no longer visible. Move the legs forward and slightly upward. Increase the X rotation to make the legs align naturally with the water surface. Move the person slightly backward so the legs extend below the float. Adjust the positioning until you find the best fit. Turn the legs to the body and then turn the body to the float. Open the expression of the X rotation and paste the following code. Change the amplitude to 5. This code makes the float move back and forth, simulating a gentle rocking motion on the water. And of course the code is in the video description. Using the puppet tool, place pins on his arm and a few pins on his chest. Move to 3 seconds in the timeline. Slightly move the head to the right, raise the arm out of the water and straight it. Move to 5 seconds, copy the first keyframes and paste them. In the graph editor, connect the curves and create a smooth up and down motion. You can shift the animation earlier by moving all keyframes to the start of the layer. Move the middle keyframe to 1.5 seconds and the last keyframe to 3 seconds. Return to ChatGPT and ask him to create the word relax, shaped like clouds. Download the image it generates. You will also find it in the project files. If you learned something new so far, or if this video is helping you out, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's really help us to keep making high quality tutorials like this one. And it's only take you a second. Back in After Effects, import the image into your composition and place it in the center of the sky. Use scale to flatten and slightly reduce the text for a better visual fit. Create a mask on the first letter, duplicate the layer, delete the mask on the duplicate, and create a new mask for the next letter. Repeat this process for each letter to create a separate layer for each letter. Notice that the last letters are connected, so use the pen tool to separate them more cleanly. Move the anchor point for each letter layer to the bottom. Apply the warp effect to the letter X. Set the blend value to 15, copy the effect and paste it onto the other letters. At 1 second, create a scale keyframe for all the letters. Move 7 frames backward and set the scale to 0%. Add the bounce expression, set the AMP to 0.05, copy the expression and paste it onto all the other letters. Create an uneven entrance by offsetting the start of each letter's animation by 2 frames for one another. Apply the gradient ramp effect to the letter L. Position the start of ramp to the top of the letter and the end of the ramp below the letter. Set the start color by sampling the sky color. Increase blend with original to 65%. Add the glow effect. Change glow color to A and B colors and set color B to white. Set glow intensity to 0.2 and slightly increase the glow radius. Copy the gradient ramp and the glow effect, then paste them onto the other letters. If your X letter gets stuck in the wrong position, don't worry, just move it back to its correct place. This shouldn't happen normally. Add a 1-node camera. At 2 seconds, create a position keyframe. Move forward to 5 seconds. Move the camera up to the top of the sky. Open the graph editor and create a sharp ease out. Since the movement feels a bit slow, nudge the keyframe slightly backward to speed it up.
I want to add another part to the animation.
I went to Pinterest to look for some animation ideas, and suddenly I saw this image that gave me a good idea for a combination animation. I download the image and open it on Photoshop to separate the airplane from the window frame.
Now we will do a step inside Photoshop. If you are not familiar with Photoshop, don't worry, all the assets included in the project file.
In Photoshop, click Select Object and then press Ctrl J to separate the plane and the window from the background. Select both the window and the plane, then move the background visible through the window. Press Ctrl J again to create a new layer with just the background visible through the window. On this new layer, select only the plane. Press Ctrl J to isolate it. Use the eraser to remove any small unwanted part not related to the plane. Export the isolated plane image. Next, click Select Object again, switch to the layer below, make it visible, then press Inverse. Press Ctrl J to separate the window from the plane, creating a layer with only the window. Erase any leftover plane parts and export the window layer. Back in After Effects, import the images you just created and convert them to 3D layers. Move them upward and increase their Z position to cover nearly the entire screen. Position them centrally so the background text is hidden and the person's head underneath isn't visible. At 4.5 seconds, create an opacity keyframe for the window. Move slightly backward and set the opacity to 0%. Go back to the last keyframe and create a position keyframe for the airplane. Return to the camera's first keyframe, move the airplane to the center, set its Z position to 10,000 and position it between the letters L and A. Right-click on the airplane position and choose Separate Dimensions. Open the graph editor, right-click and switch to Edit Value Graph. Apply Easy Ease to all 3 dimensions for the X position. Stretch the graph outside his boundaries. Do the same for the Y position, but make sure the airplane doesn't touch the top of the person. If it does, slightly reduce the graph range so it stays clear. Paste the bounce expression onto the Z position and set the AMP to 0.01. Here I made a mistake. To make the expression work properly, you shouldn't make adjustments inside the graph editor. So open the Z position graph, switch to Edit Speed Graph, and create a square shape to raise it to regular graph. You can increase the AMP to 0.02 for stronger movement. Create a new white solid that will be the wall for the window. Using the pen tool, create a mask around the window, and finally, press Invert.
This way, we have created the background around the window, with the window overlooking the ocean.
Go back to the window's first opacity keyframe and copy all the opacity keyframes to the white solid. Above the camera's last position keyframe, create a scale keyframe for the window, move 7 frames backward and reduce the scale to 60%. Apply the bounce expression and set the AMP to 0.1. Go back to the first keyframe of the plane, create the opacity keyframe and set it to 0%. Move slightly forward and bring it back to 100%. Add the 4-column gradient effect to the solid background. Lower the green point downward. Return to the C comp. Copy the colors from the 4 color gradient to the 4 points of the background for the plane. I visited Emojipedia and found gifts for flying cards. I made a short recording of the animated emoji. I went back to their homepage and found an animated emoji of an airplane. I thought this would also fit well for the animation, so I recorded too. In After Effects, create a small square in the top right corner above the airplane. Set the roundness to 40 and center the anchor point. Apply the gradient ramp effect. Place the start point above the square and the end point in the bottom of the square. Change the end color to dark purple and move the gradient point slightly outside the square. Add the animated cards emoji and move it forward in the timeline. Apply the linear color key effect. Sample the emoji black background as the key color and move the background. Position the cards in the center of the square and scale them down to 60%. Move the cards to start just after the airplane's last keyframe. Trim and delete the square layers frame that appear before this point. At the start of the layer, create a scale keyframe and set it to 0%. Move forward 7 frames and set the scale back to 100%. Create a scale keyframe for the card emoji. Return to the start of its layer and set the scale to 0%. Open the scale expression to the small rectangle and change the AMP to 0.05. Finally, copy the expression to the emoji. Move the emoji layer slightly forward in the timeline. Set the emoji layer's track mate to the square and restore the square's visibility. At 6.5 seconds, create a position keyframe for the emoji. Move forward 1 second and move the emoji downward. Open the graph editor and create a sharp ease-in. Add the airplane emoji and place its layer to start just after the card's emoji last position keyframe. Copy the linear color key effect from the cards emoji to the airplane emoji to remove its background as well. Position the airplane icon at the center of the square and scale it down to 55%. Parent the airplane layer to the cards emoji layers and set the track mate to the square. Move the airplane layer to start just after the cards emoji first position keyframe. Duplicate the square layer and apply the 4 color gradient effect. Place each gradient point in a different corner of the rectangle. Change the color of the point 1 to a light pink. The color of point 2 change to orange. The color of point 3 leave unchanged. Finally, the color of point 4 change to yellow. Increase the blend value to 150. Now add the glow effect. Switch the glow colors to A and B colors. Set color A to a light pink and color B to a light orange. Lower the threshold to 0%, set intensity to 0.7 and increase the radius to 180. Create an opacity keyframe and set it to 0%. Move to the last position keyframe and create another opacity keyframe. Move slightly backward and set the opacity to 100%. Move back a bit more and set opacity to 100% again.
This creates a color flicker effect when the animation switches.
Add the glow effect to the airplane icon layer and increase the radius. Copy the glow effect and paste it onto the emoji card layer. Add the text layer and type the best. Center the anchor point. Scale up the text so it stands out and finally part of the screen. Right click on the layer, under layer styles select inner shadow. Increase the size to 12 and reduce the opacity to 20%. Add the gradient ramp effect. Position the start of ramp above the text and the end of the ramp at the bottom. Copy the horizontal position value from the start point to the end point so the gradient points are aligned vertically. Change the start color to gray. Add another text and write vacation in another font. And center the anchor point. Scale the text up to 500% and position it just below the first text, so it almost touches the top text. Apply the 4 color gradient effect. Arrange the gradient point evenly from the middle of the right side to the left side. Copy the colors from the 4 color gradient of the previous solid and paste them into the text gradient colors. Then adjust each color to a darker shade to make the text stand out. Copy the inner shadow effect from the previous text to the vacation text. Add the glow effect to the base text. Lower the intensity to 0.4 and increase the radius to 180. Add the glow effect to the vacation text as well. Change the glow color to A and B colors. Again, change color A to a light pink and color B set to a light orange. Lower the threshold to 0%, set intensity to 0.5 and increase the radius to 50. Now we will separate the letters of the word into individual layers. Start by duplicating the best layer, then delete all the letters except the first one. Duplicate the layer again. Paste the letters you previously copied. Move them to the right, so they align with their original position. Copy all the letters except the first two, and delete the rest. Duplicate the first layer. Paste the copied letters, and again move them to the right to match with their original alignment. Repeat this process for all remaining letters. This way, we can place each letter in their exact position according to the template. Once done, delete the original text layer used as a template, and change the colors for all the letters layer to yellow. Repeat the same process for the word vacation, and create a separate layer for each letter. I accidentally didn't record this part, but make sure to set the anchor point for each letter layer to the bottom left corner. Move to just before second 5, select all the letter layers, and create position keyframes. Move back 7 frames, and shift all the letters slightly to the right. Apply the bounce expression to the first letter's position, change the EMP to 0.05, then copy and paste it to all the other letters layers. Go to the last keyframe and create scale, rotation and opacity keyframes. Move to the first keyframe, set rotation to 60 degrees, set scale to 0 and set opacity to 0%. Apply the bounce expression to both scale and rotation. Copy the scale, rotation and opacity keyframes and paste them onto all the other letter layers for the first sentence. Repeat the same process for the first letter of the word vacation, but notice that the scale for vacation is higher, so you can't copy the keyframes for the second word's animation. Instead, copy the scale, rotation and opacity keyframes manually to the remaining letter layers of the vacation. Finally, delete the original text layer vacation that served as a template. Trim and delete the parts of each letter layer before their first keyframes, and offset each layer by 2 frames for the previous one to create a staggered animation. Now, let's create a color animation for the letters, which will significantly enhance the animation. Duplicate all the letter layers for the word vacation and remove all of the opacity keyframes. Select the first letter, set its start color to pink and its end color to orange. Change the glow colors to A and B colors. Set color A to a light pink and color B to a light orange. Lower the glow threshold to 0%, increase the glow intensity to 0.8 and reduce the glow radius to 45. Copy the gradient ramp and glow effects, delete the glow gradient ramp and glow from the duplicate letter layers, and paste the new ones. On the duplicate first letter layer, go to the last keyframes, create an opacity keyframe, move forward 7 frames, and set opacity to 0%. Copy those opacity keyframes and paste them to all duplicate letter layers. Make sure they start where the final keyframes are for each letter. Finally, enable motion blur for all the layers in the animation.
And that's it for today's tutorial. If you learned something new or got inspired, leave a like and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more high-end motion design content. And again, the project files are in the description if you want to experiment on your own. And I will see you in the next one.